to attack other countries, including China. The report was jointly released by China's National Computer Virus Emergency Response Center and cybersecurity company 360. It accused the CIA of secretly orchestrating peaceful evolution and color revolutions around the world with the use of superior technology. The report says that there were numerous cyber attacks within China. It says investigators captured and extracted a large number of Trojan programs, functional plugins, and attack platform samples that the report said were closely associated with the CIA, revealing what they referred to as an empire of hackers under U.S. control. Now, Ed is reporting that Canada is looking at possibly expelling a Chinese diplomat. The diplomat was accused in media reports of targeting a Canadian lawmaker's family for sanctions on political reasons. So take a look into the media side. The Globe and Mail actually reported this week that a Chinese diplomat based in Toronto was looking into the relatives of conservative lawmaker Michael Chong. These are the relatives who live in China for possible sanctions there by the country, and that they cited a leaked Canadian intelligence document from July of 2021. The newspaper identified the Chinese diplomat as Zhao Wei. All right, that's a quick look at the media. We got a couple minutes here before the top of the hour. Rich, what are you focused on?
I was just curious to find out what's been happening with this thread on Reddit about something which happened in New Jersey. And they say that the lead suspect is a guy called Al Dente and his accomplice Lynn Guini. And the perpetrators to this crime should be sent to the penitentiary. These are all things on Reddit. And what we're talking about is this New Jersey town left baffled by the discovery of hundreds of pounds of cooked pasta, which is mysteriously dumped in the woods. 500-pound mountain spaghetti and noodles, including ziti.
Let me ask you a question. Is Al Dente a hard man?
No, I think he's
firm.
Yeah, he's
He's quite firm.
But, you know, people are Alfredo of what they might do to them. But anyway, that's enough frivolity for today.
We like our silliness here, particularly at the end of the hour. So just looking at markets before we get to the serious business with the next hour. Just seeing futures trade sort of mixed here. S&P E-minis are up a little bit. Hang Seng Index futures are down a little bit. And by the way, the next hour of Bloomberg Daybreak Asia begins right now. This is Bloomberg.
Live from the financial capital of the world, broadcasting across the globe, this is WBBR New York, Bloomberg 1130. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Asia for this Friday, May 5th in Hong Kong, Thursday, May 4th in New York. Coming up this hour, a sell-off in regional lenders raises anxiety over its stable U.S. banking system. Apple beats estimates on signs iPhone demand may be weathering an industry-wide slump in handsets. And Alibaba's global online commerce unit is said to be weighing a U.S. IPO. Taiwan warns China regarding potential drone incursions. The U.S. intelligence director says China seeks to achieve goals at U.S. expense. China voicing displeasure regarding Switzerland upping diplomatic efforts with Taiwan. I'm Ed Baxter with Global News.
Could potential new owners of Manchester United target Kylian Mbappe? I'm Dan Schwartzman. I'll have that story and more coming up in Bloomberg Sports.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak Asia. On Bloomberg 1130 New York. Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 106.1 Boston. Bloomberg 960 San Francisco. Sirius XM 119. And around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
It's the final trading day of the week in the APAC. A little past 9 in the morning. An hour away from equity market action down under. We have market holidays today in Japan, South Korea, and Thailand. We'll be talking more about what to expect as we get closer to the open in China and Hong Kong. Let's cross to Hong Kong right now. Brian Curtis is there looking at markets. What do you think it's going to be about? It looks like a weak start to the trading today for this Friday. Looking at futures, Hang Seng Index futures are down about 0.1%. Similar losses on China futures. We did see a little bounce in S&P E-minis, up 0.3%. Pretty good performance from Apple after the closing bell and after its earnings. We'll roll those out for you in a moment. There's this overhang for sure, regional banks rattling Wall Street. And we did actually get some bank earnings here in the Asia Pacific this morning, a rather blockbuster result from Macquarie Group's commodities trading business offset a downturn in deal making. In the end, for Macquarie Group, net income rose to 5.18 billion Australian dollars. That was better than the 4.99 billion expected. And we had ANZ Group announcing its first quarter profit that met analyst expectations. Margin pressures offsetting the move to claw back a larger chunk of the mortgage market there. So something to keep an eye on. The regional banks, we haven't seen a lot of bank troubles in the Asia Pacific. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but we haven't seen it yet. It hasn't weighed on markets for sure. Some other quick numbers for you. Australian futures with a drop of about 0.4%. The dollar has been weak, so we've seen some strength in the yen and the euro. Right now, dollar yen 134.24, the euro $1.1022, and the yield on the 10-year Treasury 3.37%. Doug, to you.
All right, Brian, thanks. Well, let's stick with the banking complex because we are hearing today the FDIC is planning to release a highly anticipated proposal to replenish the Deposit Insurance Fund, and it could happen as soon as next week. The story from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
The fund was partly depleted by the failures of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. Sources say smaller lenders with less than $10 billion in assets would not have to pay. FDIC data show there were more than 4,000 institutions under that threshold at the end of last year. A political debate has been raging over who should be on the hook for refilling the fund after it was depleted by billions of dollars when the government took the extraordinary step of making all SVB and Signature depositors, even uninsured ones, whole. In New York, Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
After the bell in the U.S., Apple reported quarterly sales above estimates. Top line, $94.8 billion. That is $2 billion more than the average estimate. To be fair, though, sales were down 2.5% from last year. But here is the caveat. Apple already warned investors to expect a drop of roughly twice that. So the results are probably a good indication of a rebound from a slump in both computer and smartphone sales. We got some reaction earlier from Dan Morgan at Synovus Trust.
Well, obviously the big numbers that stand out to me is this huge beat in iPhone revenue, because coming in this quarter, I had 48.97. They came in at 51.3, and that 48.97 would have represented a negative growth rate of about 3.2%. This is going to put them, I think, probably flat or even slightly up on iPhone revenue. I was looking for about 55 million units, so that's a huge number for them.
Dan Morgan from Synovus Trust there. By the way, from a supply perspective, the second quarter was an opportunity for the iPhone 14 to rebound. This device has suffered from constraints during the prior quarter because of COVID policies in China. Separately, Apple did announce plans for a $90 billion stock buyback program, which was the same as last year's plan. The company did, at the same time, raise its quarterly dividend by 4%. It's now at 24 cents a share, and Apple stock in the late U.S. session is up by more than 2%. We move next to Alibaba. The company's international online shopping unit is said to be exploring a U.S. initial public offering. The story from Bloomberg's Joanne Wong.
We're told the IPO might be launched as soon as next year. The company is weighing options to spur growth for the business, and that includes major e-commerce brands Lazada and AliExpress. Earlier in March, Alibaba unveiled plans to break up its empire into units such as e-commerce, logistics, and the cloud. And it said it will have each business potentially explore fundraising and an IPO at an appropriate time. If the U.S. IPO plan goes ahead, it will be competing with rivals such as Amazon in markets outside China. Analysts' valuation for Alibaba's international business units vary between $29 and $39 billion. In Hong Kong, Joanne Wong, Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
Let's get to global news next. The defense minister of Taiwan says his government will treat China's drone incursions as a first strike attempt. Ed Baxter with more from the Bloomberg Newsroom in San Francisco. Ed?
Yeah, this kind of consolidates the thinking, Doug, saying the ministry does not wish for war to break out in the Taiwan Strait, but Chu Kucheng repeating previous declarations that were made about aircraft violating the 12-mile line. These are drones now, flying drones. China has sent increasing numbers into the broader air defense identification zone. It has stayed in more narrow regions so far. Meanwhile, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, is telling the Senate Armed Services Committee today that the CCP is increasingly convinced that it can only fulfill Xi Jinping's vision at the expense of the United States.
And through tools of coercion, using demonstrations of strength, as well as economic and political coercion to compel governments to acquiesce to the CCP's preferences, including the land, sea, and air claims in the region and its assertions of sovereignty over Taiwan.
And she says China sees the U.S. as a threat that must be undercut in many different ways. Haynes also says China would seek to exploit a debt default if that were to happen, propaganda and intelligence gathering. China's embassy in Switzerland has voiced what it calls strong discontent over a move in the Swiss parliament's lower house aiming to intensify its relations with Taiwanese lawmakers. The embassy says it has grossly interfered with China's internal affairs. The parliamentary move mandates establishing stronger ties with Taiwan. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has visited the International Criminal Court at The Hague, acknowledging the recent arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin.
Of course, we all want to see different Vladimir here in The Hague.
And U.S. State Department spokesman Vedant Patel says Russia is running more and more attacks into Ukraine.
Since May 1st, Russia has launched more than 145 airstrikes across Ukraine. That means Russia has launched more than one missile, one drone, or bomb every hour, 24 hours a day, for 4 straight days.
And the State Department also saying it believes the purported drone attack on the Kremlin is a Russian false flag, and he says not a very good one at that. Former chairman of the Proud Boys, Henry Enrique Tarrio, has been convicted of seditious conspiracy tied to the January 6th insurrection. 4 others were found guilty of trying to block the U.S. transfer of power. In the U.S. and Europe, today is the 4th of May.
Jedi strength flows from the Force, but beware of the dark side. Anger, fear, aggression. The dark side of the Force.
May the 4th be with you. Global news powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries in San Francisco. I'm Ed Baxter. This is Bloomberg. All right, Captain Prisoner.
All right, Eddie, thank you. Let's get to our guest. Sylvia Jablonski is with us. Sylvia is co-founder and CEO as well as CIO at Defiance ETFs.